You are listening to the Two and Out CFL podcast, a proud member of the Canadian Football Podcast Network.
Here we are after week 3 of the CFL season. Travis Currah and Sheldon Jones. I'm not going to be naive here. Monday is a big one in the sports world, especially in Canada, Sheldon. Game 7 of the Stanley Cup final. Oilers, Panthers. The Panthers were up 3-0. Suddenly, the series is tied, and the Oilers might pull something off that hasn't been done since the 40s when the Leafs did it. So on one hand, it's nice to have a Toronto Maple Leafs record broken, but this is going to be a pretty crazy Game 7, man.
Yeah, I've said all along if Edmonton comes back to tie it, then they're going to win. So we're going to have to deal with Oiler fans for a while, I think.
Hey, there's a pretty good cross-section of Oiler and Rider fans, so...
I know there is. I know. And according to Sid Siguero, we have to all be Oiler fans. It's a trash take to not want them to win. Screw off.
Hey, I'm wearing a New Jersey Devils shirt.
Yeah.
Do you think I really care? But hey, as long as everybody is partying safe... I'm all right. Just don't burn your city down, and we'll be okay.
Hey, listen, if Edmonton wins, then Oilers girls got to get the key to the city, right? That's all I can think of. But anywho,
let's start with Thursday night football when the Montreal Alouettes stomped the Ottawa REDBLACKS 47-21. This, I don't know. Does it say anything about Winnipeg that, Ottawa beat Winnipeg close and then ends up going to Montreal and getting absolutely obliterated here? It was 30-1 at halftime for the Montreal Alouettes, raising the Grey Cup banner, the 8th Grey Cup in franchise history. But it was early on. It was 17-0. Montreal gets a touchdown on their first possession of the game. Then there's an interception by Tyrese Beverett, and Ottawa had 3 offensive plays before it was 17-0 for the Alouettes. It just seemed like this was almost the perfect game for the reigning champs.
Yeah, it was a molly-whopping. I was just watching, and just like you said, when it was at halftime, I was just thinking to myself, I was like, man, and they beat the Bombers. I don't know what to say. It was like a tale of two teams there because, and I said on the show here that I thought Ottawa was going to play Montreal pretty well. But yeah, Cody was in a zone, and I think if you had him in fantasy and you had him as your captain, it was 75 points or something like that. He just had a great game, and Montreal is who we thought they were, and apparently Ottawa is too.
Those Alouettes are not Cinderellas. Last year was not a fluke at all. They belong where they are, and
they haven't lost a game since September.
Yep.
Yeah, so they're, spoiler alert, number 1 again next week.
Yeah, it's like they really just took, their time last year coming together as a team, and then once it all clicked, they just really took over. I mean, what went wrong for them in this one? Really nothing. Reggie White Jr. makes his return to the roster. He tore 3 ligaments in his knee in 2022. He gets 2 touchdowns in his return. Tyson Philpott, 150 yards and a touchdown. Keon Julian Grant, 116 yards in this one. I mean, Cody Fajardo had 40 yards on the ground. He had almost 400 yards passing, 393 yards, 3 touchdowns. It was really just dominance right from the beginning for the Alouettes. And hey, a sellout crowd and their biggest crowd in a long time, in about 11 years. So, hey, it looks like football's back in Montreal, and the Alouettes are bringing them back with dominance.
Well, that's just it's just another what's the word? Another example of when you win, fans come back. So hopefully, other teams will start to win a little bit more, and then fans might come back there. Um, yeah, it was dominance. Ottawa scored some points in the second half, but that's when Montreal, went back into basically a prevent defense and wasn't letting anything go over them. But then, yeah, I don't know what more to say about that game. It was just a dominant victory.
Look, I said it last week. I don't like talking about attendance on the show, but you said it. Winning brings fans back. And I know that was a Grey Cup versus a Rough Rider 2-0 start to the season, but there are people talking about it. So to kind of ignore it and put my head in the sand is kind of silly. Just over 24,000 at the Rough Rider home opener. Kind of the smallest crowd for a home opener there in 18 years. They're calling it, other than the one 10 years ago when I guess the streets were flooding kind of thing. That's what Jamie Nye was saying on X. Do you have anything to say about that? I already see people complaining about Sunday Night Football. It's kind of funny. The people that attend don't seem to be fans of it, but the people that watch it on TV really enjoy it. So it almost seems like there's no winning for the schedule makers.
Well, yeah, but you have to also understand it's Saskatchewan, a lot of farming going on. Seeding is happening right now. There is a good amount of people who do travel, 3, 4, 5 hours to go to the games. And a 5 o'clock Sunday kickoff, maybe not the best time for that in Saskatchewan early during seeding. But you know what?
I'm not an agriculture expert, and it's not an agriculture podcast, but I feel like if you're still seeding, that's not a good sign.
I don't know. That's just what
I thought that'd be done by now.
Well, I saw a few people saying that on X. So again,
okay.
I am a farmer in Farming Simulator 24, but other than that, I definitely don't do it in real life.
If there are any Saskatchewan, Alberta, Manitoba listeners that listen in the Cedar, the Combine, the Swath, or whatever, let us know. Because in Alberta, I see the crops are already growing. So I'm just saying. There's always an excuse. That's what I find, honestly.
Well, it's been raining for it seems like 3 weeks straight here. So that's probably why maybe some seeding is still going on. But again, I love Sunday Night Football, especially when there's no NFL going on, because I love the Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. But, maybe a 5 o'clock Sunday night game in Saskatchewan early in the season is not the best. But again, the 24,000 that were there, they were loud. They caused some issues for the Tiger Cats. We'll talk about them later on. But, again, just win, and hopefully the fans will come back.
Yeah, I obviously I do think that's a big part of the equation of getting fans coming out. I mean, especially in Montreal, they had about 70 quarterbacks in the last 10 years since Calvillo retired, and head coach after head coach. And now they got some stability there, and they really believe in that team. Cody Fajardo, I mean, that's a great guy, I think, to have on your team. He's a great guy to listen to interviews from. And then Jason Moss, what can you say about him? The way that he has really brought the Quebec culture into the locker room. And Cody's trying to learn French. And how do you got to feel good for those guys. I think Cody's a great guy, and he got the short end of the stick in his last with his last employer. So good for him in Montreal and bringing the fans back out there. But you talk about the 5 o'clock starts, the Sundays, all this stuff. It's funny because one of the main complaints of the CFL is, I don't know when the games are on. Well, now you do. Yep. Same time, basically 4 consecutive days. I know the Thursday and Friday games are later than, 5 Mountain, but now we know when they're on, and they complain about that. So, I don't know. Let's start having them at Tuesday at 9:42 a.m. and then we'll actually have something to complain about here. But Ottawa, back to this game, they just brought the heat. They brought the physicality to Winnipeg, and it wasn't there this time. They were just overmatched in every phase by the Alouettes. Money Hunter, Ooh, now I know the back end of Ottawa's defense, both of their starting corners, projected corners to start the year, are on the 6-game injured list. So Money Hunter moves to corner, and the Alouettes feasted on that. And then he dislocates his shoulder in the second half. So that's a veteran defensive back hurt again for the Red Blacks. And how do we say it? Like Drew Brown, he really, early in his career, didn't turn the ball over. But early in this one, he throws an interception. Later on, he loses a fumble in the same quarter, and then you're behind the 8 ball. You're turning the ball over, and that's not a recipe for victory. Like, really, the only highlight for the Red Blacks was the Devontae Dedmon, I think it was a 101-yard kickoff return in the second half. So they ended up having a little bit of life. But, I mean, the Alouettes just put the dagger in them and score again. So they came to play. They're proving that they're the real deal. The Alouettes had the ball for over 33 minutes in this game. Just didn't run the ball. Now, I guess this is a question, Sheldon. The Elks couldn't run the ball. They put up 36 points. But they still moved the ball. Is it really as important as I think it is? Because some of the winning teams, they just don't seem to care about it. Montreal's one of them, and they won the Grey Cup last year.
Yeah. Well, the CFL has become a passing league. It's been a passing league for a long time.
Yeah.
But I still think the philosophy of run to set up the pass is very important. We'll talk about it at the last game of the Rider game, because I liked a lot of what I saw tonight in the play calling and stuff like that. But when I'm playing Madden, I run the ball on first down because I know it's different because it's 4-down football, but you see a lot of times when teams, they overanalyze, I think, when they think that the other team is going to think that they're going to run, and so they try to outcoach the other team by then passing. Oftentimes, if you throw an incompletion on first down, you're second and long. Second and long is hard. If you get 3, 4, 5 yards on the ground, second and medium's a lot easier. So I don't know. If I was an offensive coordinator, I'd probably have a pretty balanced play calling. But yeah, like you said, like Jason Moss doesn't like to use his running back a lot. Last year, Edmonton did, because Kevin Brown had a lot of yards, and maybe teams are just focusing more. Like the first 2 games of the season, the teams that the Riders were playing, they were focusing on AJ Ouellette, like stacking the box, and so Trevor Harris was able to throw over top of them. So it just, I guess, as an offensive coordinator, you're just playing against what you see, and maybe that takes running out of it. Maybe that adds to it. I don't know.
We'll talk about a successful team running the ball, and that's the Toronto Argonauts, but that is the third game of the week here. Raquel Armstead, 6 carries, 26 yards for the Red Blacks. He also fumbled the ball. But if there is a positive, it's Justin Hardy, 7 catches, 143 yards. Early on in this season, he seems to be that great offensive threat that the Red Blacks have.
Yeah, and because they were in such a hole at the beginning of the game, they kind of had to abandon the run a little bit there, because they needed to try to get back into it and get big chunk plays. But yeah, Jake Hardy, he looks really good. He's a dynamite receiver, and he's kind of in the position that I think a lot of us thought that Dominique Rhymes would be.
Absolutely.
And so, but maybe the teams are focusing more on Rhymes, and that's giving Hardy a little bit of an edge.
And what a statement, I'll say, just Darnell Sankey late in the game, that hit that he laid on Jalen Acklin. I know the Red Blacks weren't happy with how he celebrated it, but those linebackers live for those hits every single time that they're out there, and that was a statement for the Alouettes. And I don't know, they might be my least favorite team to play if I'm an opposing team in the CFL right now, because they just look vicious. Let's go to Friday Night Football. And this was a great game to watch. I guess maybe if you're not a Bombers fan, but the BC Lions winning 26-24, and the Bombers needed this win, obviously, because they now go 0-3. I think it's for the first time since 2012. But again, the Lions just get off to such a fast start here. Alex Hollins, a 71-yard touchdown early in the game, and that would just be the beginning of Hollins' night. But let's talk about Friday. I guess that's when the story came out earlier that day when Brady Oliveira wasn't happy with his placement on the depth chart, saying he's ready to go. Saying he's good to go. He's fired up. Now, he ended up being the leading rusher in the game for the Bombers. 9 carries for 64 yards. So as the game went on, they gave him the ball more. He had over 7 yards a carry. So I don't know if what O'Shea was doing was motivating his star running back to got a handsome payday in the offseason, but he didn't have training camp. And there was word that maybe he got banged up doing something he wasn't supposed to be doing. But it does seem like a little bit more drama coming out of Winnipeg than we're used to, man.
Yeah, to be honest, I thought when I first read it, I was like, man, I don't think O'Shea would let his players say stuff like this. So it kind of got me thinking that obviously I think most smart CFL fans know that O'Shea likes to play gamesmanship when it comes to depth charts, when it comes to talking about injuries, that kind of thing. So I thought that maybe this was a little bit of him getting Oliveira to do that by, airing some dirty laundry in the media to maybe take the
I love that
focus off
storyline if they actually did that.
Yeah. Hey, whatever you can do to get a leg up on the other team, I'm fine with it. But I can understand if you're a star player and you maybe feel like you're ready to go and your coach isn't wanting you to go or doesn't feel you're ready, but I don't know, it's the coach's call. But again, I didn't think that any player that's under O'Shea would actually go out and do that, because I kind of felt like he would have a lot more respect from the players to do that than to air.
Well, I almost wonder if O'Shea wanted him mad,
Yeah, possibly. And some players are like that. Like when I played football, I was playing junior football and I was moving up to high school, and I was not as motivated as I should have been. And my coach tried to motivate me by being a jerk. And that's not how that doesn't work for me. So I ended up quitting football. If my coach would have found a different way to motivate me, I probably would have continued to play football. So
like chicken after practice, that would have motivated me.
Yeah. So I don't know if O'Shea knows that this is a good way to motivate Brady, but hey, a 7-yard average, if he is, feeling healthy and recovered from whatever did happen in the preseason or before the season started. But again, I think a lot of people have to go back to O'Shea not playing his vets enough in preseason, and that's definitely hurting them. And as I was driving home from the game today on the post-game show, they were saying that Luke Mullender was asking, said, hey, Winnipeg can't suck forever. So they're going to get it together. I thought it might have been this week because I picked them to win. I don't know a lot of people who actually picked BC, but my wife did, and she got a perfect week this week. Nice. So good for her. She's going to win some money in our little pool that we're in.
Nice.
Yeah.
But what struck me was, now, I think it's fair to say that one of the concerns about the Lions early in the year is maybe Vernon Adams taking too many hits. But in this one, Winnipeg couldn't get to him.
I know.
So all of a sudden, the pass protection in BC looked really strong, or is it because Winnipeg can't get to him? he had so much time in the pocket, and that was a big part of the reason why Alexander Hollins had the game he did. By the way, Hollins called his shot to offensive coordinator Jordan Maximic. He said, "I'm going to have a 200-yard day today." Well, he did. And it started with that 71-yard touchdown. It ended with the big, 60-yard completion at the end of the game that really sealed it. He could have had more, but he took the knee and they ran out the clock. 7 catches, 215 yards for Alex Hollins in this game. Most receiving yards in a CFL game in 6 years. Most for a Lions receiver in 21 years when Superman G-Roy did it in 2003. But a lot of that, obviously, Sheldon, is the time that Vernon Adams was given in that pocket. So on one hand, credit to the Lions for giving him that time. But on the other hand, that we haven't seen that from Winnipeg in how long? That has to be a massive concern.
Yeah, I put up a little poll after the game asking Bomber fans if it was time to panic. I think it's time to panic. If you're the Bombers, you're lucky that Edmonton is also 0-3. But Edmonton could be 3-0 if they had a one play go a different way in each of their games. Winnipeg can't say the same thing. They got to figure it out, and I expected O'Shea to figure it out already. So it's all the factors we've been talking about. They're getting older, they're getting slower, they lost key free agents, maybe they prioritized the wrong free agents, but they're still like a championship caliber team on paper. So why isn't it translating on the field? It's not like the only thing that really changed structurally is Richie Hall gave up some of his duties and is more of a consultant this year. But if that's the only thing that's really changed, other than a few players, and they've had some costly injuries, like Dalton Schoen not playing, that's hurting because he's their best receiver. Kenny Lawler not playing, that's hurting. He's one of their best receivers too. But they still have other players that usually would fill in. Winnipeg's been so good at next man up, but the next man isn't there, it seems. So, I hope for Bomber fans they can figure it out. But at the same time, you guys have been great for 4 or 5 years, so I'm not too sad about it.
Here we are after week 3, and Zach Collaros does not have a touchdown pass. Now, I think this has become kind of a regular occurrence where Collaros would get the team, down to the 1-yard line, and then they would punch it in with the backup QB or the running back. So, that happened in this one where Chris Streveler had 3 touchdowns. And I thought that in years past, it was really the Bomber offensive line and the defensive line that really brought the physicality. And you noticed at times in this game where Drew Wolotarski looked for contact, Chris Streveler looked for contact, and it looked like he hurt a few Lions defenders. Brady Oliveira looked for contact. So those guys really bought physical play, and they brought energy. Sometimes you don't want to see it. Those guys, obviously you want that energy, that physicality, but you need it from the big guys. And I'm just not seeing that from Winnipeg at all so far in this one. I wonder if Rasheed Bailey is a big loss, a blocking receiver. He didn't always have the big play like he did for Toronto this week. But Dalton Schoen leaving this game, Carrick Wheatfall leaving the game, the receiver that ended up filling in for Kenny Lawler. There's a rumor maybe the Bombers are looking at Braden Lenius, one of the final cuts for the Riders, the Canadian receiver there. But now they're down to basically Drew Wolotarski and Nick Dembski. And late in the game, oh man, Dembski misjudges that throw, and I actually think that's a throw and a catch that he usually makes.
Yeah.
He didn't make it. They're down by 2, And then it's 2nd and 10 Lions. Winnipeg blitzes. Brandon Alexander gets burned. It's another big play for Alexander Hollins to put him over 200 on the night. And the game is over. So a lot of the star players in Winnipeg making key mistakes when they had an opportunity to win. But I think it was the end of the first half. That clock management by Winnipeg was, not good. 11 seconds left. They run the ball. And then they end up taking, 6 seconds to run the play, so they don't get the field goal. They come away with nothing. Now, maybe that last play took too long, but I thought running the ball with 11 seconds left was a strange decision. I thought that they were just going to go for the field goal at that point. You know what I mean? But, yeah, the play calling and the clock management at the end of the first half, also uncharacteristic by a team that ended up losing by 2. By the way, it could have changed how that second half went, man.
Yeah, I guess when I said before that Winnipeg didn't have the chances for one play, this game they did. I was sitting there, I was watching it, and I was like, did Craig Dickinson become the coach of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers? Because
that was his calling card.
Because honestly, like, just like you said, when they ran the ball, I was like, oh, okay, cool. They don't want to risk a turnover. They're going to take the field goal, and they're going to go into the half. But then they line up again, and I was like, what are you doing? It's not like, yeah. Again, I don't know if that was O'Shea's call, if that was, Buck Pierce's call, if that was Collaros who just took too long. Like, I'm not sure, but they got to make sure that never happens again, because that brutal. You can't not get points when you're what are they on the 15, the yard line? Like, you can't go away into the half without getting points there.
Now, Alexander Hollins might have had the biggest night for the Lions, but did he have the biggest catch?
No.
I think it's Andrew Pearson, 6'3", 300 pounds in the second half.
Yes, sir.
The Lion, I guess, receiver, offensive lineman, made the catch. The big man has hands, stick tap, hat tip to Andrew Pearson. And I actually really thought that both offenses were kind of opening up the books. Like, Chris Strevler had a drop, like Collaros hit him because they had both quarterbacks on the field. They were pulling out all the stops, and this was a great game to watch. Now, the Lions got a big win in Winnipeg last summer. Another big win in Winnipeg this summer. All of a sudden, it doesn't look like if that West Final is going to be at Princess Auto Stadium. Maybe it does have a new location in 2024, which will be very interesting.
It's true, but Bomber fans are still clinging to the Lions went 0-5 in 2011, and they won the. I don't remember if it was 2011 or whenever it was, but
it was 2011.
And then they won the Grey Cup. So I guess clutch those pearls as long as you can, Bomber fans. But anything can happen in the CFL. I think we've seen it. There's a lot of parity in this league right now, but sometimes the teams that we're ranking the lowest are showing that they do deserve to be the lowest. But I still think right now any team could probably beat any team, maybe outside of Montreal. I think they're pretty much head and shoulders above the rest here. But the CFL is crazy. It's a crazy league. Anything can happen, but the Bombers have got to get this figured out quick.
Okay, I don't want to spoil your power rankings, but can Winnipeg move up in a loss?
No.
Wow, I think Hamilton's worse than them. We'll talk about that later.
Hamilton's receivers are like 20th.
This is wow. We'll talk about that. I saw some people criticizing the betting line for the Edmonton Elks, but if you bet them to cover, You're laughing. They ended up losing to the Argos by 3 points, 39-36. The Argos beat the Elks. An absolute shootout here. And the Elks started off fast. They were bringing the heat to Cameron Dukes. They were moving the ball very well through the air, I must say, because they were not able to move the ball effectively on the ground at all. But this was just a back and forth game. Again, though, the timing of the penalties that the Elks are taking and the explosive plays they're giving up. Deontay McMahon, a 44-yard rush. It seems like the Elks, a lot of times, they'll have the team on their heels and then give up this massive play that's just deflating. But you saw what the Argos did. The Elks had their ears pinned back early in that game. Then they started rushing in every which direction. And they do have the luxury of a great offensive line and 3 good running backs in Kadeem Carey, Deontay McMahon, and Daniel Adeboboye. And when they start not knowing who's going to be getting the ball, and then Dukes gets opportunities to drop back to pass again, and that's when the Elks defense started to struggle a little bit with that Argos. But the offense was keeping up all game long. It's just another one of those things for the Elks where, they're falling to 0-3. But, man, that running game for the Argos, that's how you do it. And the balance that offense brings to the table, they're going to be another force to be reckoned with this year, and I can't wait to see them play Montreal pretty quickly here.
They got Montreal quick, and then after the after the Riders bye, they go to Saskatchewan and play them too. That's going to be a really good game, I think, especially because Corey Mace is going to want to beat his team, and they're going to want to beat him, right? So, but. Yeah, Cameron Dukes looked really good. If he keeps this up, Chad who?
So just say that he's good to return after 9 weeks. He's done all his requirements. And the Argos are 7-2 or something. What do they do?
Cut Chad Kelly.
That would be wild.
Well, imagine you don't, and you let him in, and he comes in and he stinks out the joy, and you lose a couple games, and then you realize that maybe you should have went with Cam. And I mean, right now, maybe you're not worried about Hamilton and Ottawa, but I never liked, or I would never want to see a team just ruin consistency just for the sake to get a star player back. I know a quarterback is the biggest tool in the box, but if they have that, a quarterback playing as good as Dukes is, and if he does go 7-2 after 9 games, you just can't mess with that. You have that quarterback without that distraction. You can't bring that distraction back, but knowing the Argos, they will.
Yeah, I'm sure they think that he sells tickets or whatever, but that will be something that we'll probably be getting into about mid-August, September kind of thing. But some great quarterback performances again. I didn't even tell you Vernon Adams' stat line, who threw for 398 yards and 2 touchdowns. Now, Dukes only threw for 214 yards, but he had 2 touchdowns. He had a touchdown on the ground, and they also ran for over 180 yards. So it's not like he needed to have this crazy performance. He was 18 of 21, man. McLeod Bethel Thompson, 28 of 38. 4 touchdowns, 342 yards. So early on this season, the quarterbacks are slinging it, and it's been really, really fun to watch, man.
Oh, this game was probably the most fun game of the week. It was very interesting. You had a blowout to begin the game. You had 2 really good close games, and then you had a blowout to end the week. Yeah. That was very very interesting. But yeah, no, Cam Dukes, he got me 51.4 points in fantasy, so I was pretty happy.
Was
And
he your
that is
captain?
not no.
Wow.
Yeah,
Those rushing, like,
imagine
going
if he was
forward.
my captain.
Okay, 102 points. You kidding me? Like,
And I think he was 10,000.
wow.
Yeah.
So here's the deal. Like, I think going forward, like guys like Cameron Dukes, Cody Fajardo, and Vernon Adams Jr. that are threats at punching the ball in with their legs. Those
Straveler
might,
too.
yeah. Could you pick Strevler? Like, if he had 3 rushing touchdowns, it would have been good for the rest of your roster.
Yeah.
But it's definitely interesting going forward here. Now, we fast forward to the second half when the Elks are kind of keeping up. And they start the half with a great return from Javon Leake, holding, bringing it back. And then late in the game, critical moment. Like the Elks, this is another game that they could have won. They stopped the Argos with 3 minutes to go. But rookie Joel DeBlanco takes a contacting the kicker penalty. Now, the Argos continued the drive. They didn't score on that drive, but it was critical field position. And I thought that, I don't know, man, that penalty made me shake my head. Like, but I guess you have to know the situation, right?
Well, he did contact the kicker
Yeah.
while the kicker's leg was up, but it seemed like he was rolling like slowly. Like it seemed like if he
The
would have just
replay,
stopped, if he would have just stopped, he wouldn't have hit him. But this was really it was such a weird that end of the fourth quarter was so weird. I even tweeted out that it seems like whatever team has the ball last is going to win. That's the type of game this is. And then we get those 2 series where, Toronto stops Edmonton. And then Edmonton stops Toronto, but gets the penalty. And then Edmonton stops Toronto again. And I was like, oh, okay, so the defense decides to show up for the last 5 minutes of the game? Like, but it was, again, that just made it even more exciting, actually. Like, it was such an entertaining game.
So then Toronto ends up, because of that penalty, getting valuable field position and pinning Edmonton in pretty deep. Now, Javon Leake, I mean, could he have let the ball go? I'm trying to remember. But I don't know. Do you want to give up that, single? But anyway, 1st and 10 from their 5, tie game. Just over a minute left. And 2 deep incompletions. I know they couldn't run the ball, but I really thought that series, I know it's only 2 plays, that was not what you wanted to see. Like, I think they should have tried 7, 8-yard passes, not 20, 25. And I know you never want to play for overtime, but that play calling deep in their own end, I don't think good choices there were made by Edmonton.
I mean, sometimes you should play for overtime. Ask Hamilton. It made me scratch my head a little bit, that play calling too. The Argos wanted it more, I guess.
I want to say good for Hergy Mayala of the Elks. He's got 3 touchdowns through 3 games, including 2 against the Riders in the Elks home opener. He had no touchdowns going into this year since July of 2022. So I think the resurgence in his career with the Elks and McLeod Bethel Thompson throwing him the ball has been great. But the Elks do lose their right guard in Thomas Jack Cardilla, who Dave Campbell with 630 Ched said he might be their best run blocker, and their running game is non-existent. A couple of years ago, we thought Kevin Brown was going to be that next guy, and obviously the running back can only go where the holes are, and it just seems like they aren't there. 7 carries for 27 yards, and McLeod was able to throw 4 touchdowns and throw for over 340 yards, but if they can't get that running game going in Edmonton, it might be another long season. But that's 3 games, 3 losses by 1 score, and now they go to BC on a bit of a short week. So, I mean, again, they're probably going to be in that game, but just not a easy assignment for the Elks. The Argos get their 11th straight home victory. Now, there was an interception thrown, but it was by a running back, Deontay McMahon, in the third quarter. He ends up throwing an interception to Luchez Purifoy, and that was a big moment where the Elks ended up tying up that game. And then I want to give a shout out to Rasheed Bailey of the Argos, who had a big touchdown here. The energy he brings, the blocks that he throws. He is such a valuable member of that team. He had a 21-yard touchdown. DeMonte Coxey back into the lineup. He ends up having a touchdown of his own, and the Argos just spread the ball around. They do it very, very efficiently, and it got them another victory at home. Elks lose again. Argos win again. It is becoming a familiar story. The final game of Week 3 of the Riders beating the Ticats 36-20. I said, hey, the Riders can't afford to have another bad first half, and they didn't. It was 17-0 at the end of the first quarter, including forcing a fumble on the opening kickoff. And they deferred the kick to the second half so the Riders could have the win. So it's like they got the ball at the beginning of both halves, right? And hey, the Riders took that lead early on, and it was off to the races until the third quarter when the Ticats, they had a chance to get back into this game. But starting off quickly with that crowd, this was big for Corey Mace's first home opener.
Yeah, it was pretty electric in there when that fumble happened. The only thing I could remind me of is when Mary Alfred took an opening kick, I think, a couple years ago back to the house, and it was just crazy there. Yeah, it was exactly what the Riders needed. The other two games, they didn't start. They didn't have anything going until really the second half, and I obviously that's something that Coach Mace was keying in on, because you could tell that they were fired up, they were ready to go. Trevor Harris looked really good until he got hurt there right at the end of the first half. They just set the tone, and the score kind of flatters Hamilton because the Riders went really soft in the fourth quarter, and the
Riders should have had a bigger lead even before Harris left the game, I thought.
Oh yeah, I agree. But it's hard for me to nitpick because I was there. I was having fun. It was good.
Hamilton ends up starting the game with 6 consecutive punts. Mm-hmm. It was not a good start for the Ticats, and I guess we'll have to talk about Tim White as this goes on, but they couldn't run the ball. The penalties that they got taking were just crushing the Ticats, but at halftime, the Cats are in this game. It's 17-8 Riders, and Trevor Harris leaves the game, and it looks like he's going to be okay. It looked like maybe he would have been able to come back if it was, a playoff game or a closer game, something like that. But the Riders go on by. So it's pretty good timing for him to get banged up. He's going to be able to take the bye to get healthy before playing the Argos in Week 5 on July 4th. But once Shea Patterson came in, the Rider offense stalled. And that gave the Ticats an opportunity to maybe fight back and get back into this game. And they were close to getting back in this game in the third quarter when they're knocking on the doorstep. They're like on the 5 or 6 yard line. And then I think it was Charbel DeBeer ends up forcing the fumble from Bo Mitchell. And then the wheels fell off for the Ticats at that very moment. They could have made it either 18-10 or 18-14, whatever it was. And then Bo started forcing that ball. And it really looked ugly. Trevor trying to force it to Tim White, who, by the way, had 6 targets, 0 catches. For a guy that almost had 1,300 yards a year ago. And then Bo starts forcing it into spots where nobody knows what he was seeing. There's deflections. There were 3 interceptions that he threw in the second half. Suddenly, the Bo that we thought was back from games 1 and 2 was forcing it in this one, and the Riders took advantage.
He was forcing it, but I don't think that he should be to blame for 2 of the picks because they were deflected. They kind of deflected and went right into the Riders' their defensive backs' hands. So it's tough for me to think that this game was lost because of Bo. But
that deflected pass, especially the first one, that's on him. Like, the guy's right in front of the receiver. So.
I guess so. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe I'm trying to be a little bit of a Bo apologist. I don't know. Just from my point of view in the stands, it just looked to me like he was able to move the ball more in the second half. But even in the first half, he did move the ball, but then had that fumble there. I just think that he didn't have his help from Tim White, like you just said. I know a friend of mine, he makes a sign every game, and the sign that he brought to this game was Tim with cement hands. And
oh wow.
It seemed to be the case. But like, I don't know, the Riders were able to actually get some running going and working for them. AJ actually was able to break out and be that AJ Alouette that us Rider fans were hoping for. So I think it was just, I don't know. Bo was forcing it. You're right. They kind of had to abandon their running game because they were down so much. And the Riders, I don't think they've given up. They've let any team rush for more than 35 yards this season.
Their run defense is wild. Butler had 5 carries for 10 yards.
Yeah,
so, they got down 17-0, but it also wasn't effective, the little that they tried.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was a great game for a Rider fan. It was not a great game for Ticat fans. But like you said before, it's hard for me to justify having Hamilton lower than Winnipeg on the power rankings just because Hamilton was able to move the ball so well. And I know Winnipeg, they did too, but Winnipeg was playing, I don't know what
I see. Your wheels are turning, man, and you're trying to keep Winnipeg on the bottom here, but they outscored Hamilton. And they were playing against,
a better team.
The Lions. I don't know.
I'll think on it.
Okay, when we're talking about 2 teams that lost, Winnipeg was closer to winning Hamilton.
That's true.
I don't know. True. When you're talking about the bottom 3, they're all 0-3, so it doesn't matter.
But Winnipeg got beaten by Ottawa. Hamilton's been beaten by.
Okay, the Riders' twice. 3 wins are against winless teams.
Yeah, that's true. All right,
we're fighting about the bottom 3.
I will. Well, because that's what everyone's gonna bitch about, right? So,
that's true.
So we got to figure it out here. I'll do some figuring, and tomorrow when we put them out, we'll make a nice little graphic, and then you guys can fight about it and tell me I'm an idiot.
I'm looking forward to that. So Bo had 29 of 45, 3 interceptions, 2 touchdowns in this one. And their leading receiver ended up being Shamar Bridges. That seems to be the guy that they want to get the ball to. He goes 9 catches, 113 yards, and a touchdown. Keandre Smith also had a touchdown in this one, and a scary collision with Marcus Sayles in the second half, where Sales, I mean, looked like he delivered a big hit to Keandre Smith, but Sales was the one that ended up getting knocked out and hurting this one. He was smiling when he walked off the field. I don't know if the hamster was completely on the wheel in that one, but hopefully he's okay. He's probably, well, I mean, he's going into the bye here, but those head injuries are always scary. But maybe more adjustments from that Rider secondary after the bye on the way.
Yeah, like in the stadiums, it was crazy because we saw that big hit, and of course, the hometown team makes a big hit, you're going to get up and start cheering and giving high fives. And then I was high fiving my buddy Matt behind me, and then just a hush fell over the crowd. And I turned around and I saw all the players on their knee, and I was like, what happened? Oh my goodness. Because I thought it was the Hamilton guy who was hurt at first. And then I saw that it was Sales, and I was like, oh my goodness. But then when he sat up and we could see that because I thought it was like a neck injury. I didn't know that he was just knocked out, and they didn't play. They didn't play a replay in the stadium. It's one thing I really don't like about the Riders at Mosaic Stadiums. They don't play enough replays. They just
maybe
do
it's because he
shots.
was hurt, or
no, I know, but I'm saying even other stuff like we didn't know why they why the command center called that roughing the passer. Like they didn't play any replays, so like we're kind of left in the dark there. But really glad to see Sales be able to walk it off, and yeah, he looked like he was on Dream Street there. But again, good to see that, and good to not see a cart come out and stretcher job. Yeah. Also, scary situation when Butler went down too, because again, a hush on the crowd and players down on their knees, and it's like, oh my goodness. I know football's a violent sport. That was a
massive stop and hit.
Yeah. Football's a violent sport, and this stuff is going to happen, but I'm just glad that both players are able to get up and walk off over their own power.
Was the wind at your back in this game? Because, man, the havoc that it wreaked on Lothar's field goal attempt at the end of the first half, that was pretty wild.
Yeah, that's the end of the stadium we were sitting in, because we upgraded to the Havana seats where you get, free pop and popcorn and chips. It's good deal there.
Got to get there early for the chips, man.
That's true. We did. Well, because you got to get there even a half hour earlier for the $5 beer now.
I saw that.
It's not up until kickoff. Yeah. They ended 30 minutes before kickoff.
So how long are they on sale for then? The $5 beers? An hour?
It's like an hour. Yeah.
Okay.
So an hour and a half until a half hour before kickoff. So
$30. Put back 6 beers. That's pretty good.
I got 4. Tammy had 1, so I had 3, so that's good. I had to go work after, so.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, and plus it's a Sunday night, and I had to podcast. I wanted to at least be a little coherent.
Oh, the great lost episode of Two and Out is when Ty was too drunk. And I actually called it. I'm like, we can't do this. And I wish I would have kept that recording.
Yeah, that would have been a good B-side to put out someday.
I think this is episode 451 of the show. It should be 452, but we'll just call that one the lost episode.
But back to your question about the wind. So the wind was actually like hitting the side of our face because we were right on the end there, and so we could feel it. But honestly, I was fine with it because I don't like a lot of heat, and like it was a hot day in Regina. It was like 32 degrees and muggy, and that's not for me. So I was glad there was a little bit of wind. It was too much wind, as Brett Lowther will tell you.
You got some wind burn, or are you blushing?
Well, no, I got sunburn. I was volunteering Food Truck Wars all weekend too. So, but that mosquito, that field goal that he hit, like we were just watching it, and it just reminded me. I remember I don't know who they were playing against, but the same thing happened, but it was against the Rider. The opponent had kicked it and just dropped right before. But it was.
I thought he was going to miss it the other way. And then, that wind, took it for a ride.
Yeah, but and even when it came to like throwing it, there was a couple times when Patterson was in there and he was throwing into the wind. I think he just put a little bit too much mustard on it, and luckily that one play where Schaefer Baker tipped it, because if he wouldn't have tipped that ball, the Ticat would have picked it off for sure. So I'm glad he did that. But the wind was definitely a factor in that game, because even for punts, when Hamilton, like you said, Hamilton punted 6 times in a row in the first quarter, going into that wind, the net yardage on those punts wasn't great.
Well, I wonder if that was part of the struggle with a Bo as well. Like, it could have been.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
What did you think? 28-14 Saskatchewan, fourth quarter, 6:14 left. So the Ticats had just gotten that touchdown. To go down 2 touchdowns, and they go for that onside kick. Now, I kind of thought that it was an interesting decision in the first place. Pretty poorly executed onside kick in general. But what did you think about the call to go for the onside at that stage of the game anyway?
I honestly like the call, because I like when my team does that. I like aggressive special teams. I like trick plays. I like stuff like that. So I was okay with the call, but the execution, like you said, was not good. They did it right in the sense that I'm sure, the coaches were like, hey, watch for the onside kick, but you could tell that the Riders were not ready for that onside kick. If the Hamilton player would have just let it roll that extra 2 or 3 yards before touching it, they would have got that ball. No question about it. So, great. I thought it was a great call, but poor execution. I can't remember if the Riders scored on that drive or not.
They did.
Okay.
They ended up. It ended up being brutal field position for the Ticats, because they ended up taking another penalty there.
Oh yeah, right.
They took the objectionable conduct. So then the Riders get the ball at their Hamilton 21.
Yeah.
So okay. I guess maybe that's why in my head I was like, what a terrible time to go for an onside kick. And then Shea Patterson ended up punching it in and put the Riders back up by 3 scores. Then Hamilton scores again, and then they actually recover the next onside kick. But yeah.
The other thing that honestly, like, I kind of was thinking in my mind is there was a storm that was threatening in Regina, and it ended up missing the stadium area of the city, and it went south. But for a while, like, there was a lot of us on our phone checking the radar and kind of just hoping, as Rider fans, that we'd make it to that 7-minute mark of the third quarter before anything happened. But I wonder if Hamilton was thinking about that, because once it did pass that, they would know that if the game got called and they're losing, and it was more than an hour delay, that they would lose the game. So maybe they were trying to be a little bit more aggressive to try to get back in it quicker in that way, because it must not have been close enough to the stadium proximity, but there was 2 or 3 or 4 like really good lightning strikes that lit up the sky. So I was kind of surprised that the game didn't get called, but they must not have been within whatever the halo is that it has to be.
Trevor Harris goes 16 of 21 before leaving the game. He had 2 touchdowns and an interception. Sean Bain Jr., 36 yards. Hey, Sheldon, off the top of your head, do you know who the Rider leading receiver was?
I'm going to say it was a Joe Squared with his 40-yard touchdown.
He was second to A.J. Ouellette, who had 4 catches for 47 yards. If it weren't for him, Adjo would have been the leading receiver for the Riders with 1 catch. So I guess he's their leading wide receiver, slot back, with 1 catch for 40 yards. So the Riders, they didn't have to move the ball that much. They had 98 rushing yards from Ouellette, 20 carries, so he's going to be sitting in the tub, I think, during the bye week. He's always limping around. Like, the guy is he's an animal.
Yeah, but this is the week, and I think I called it that he was going to actually have his breakout game here at home, and I like all-purpose yards together. He definitely went over that 100-yard mark, and I thought he looked like the AJ Ouellette that Rider fans were signing or were hoping that got signed and got and was here. But yeah, you don't need to do a lot of offense when your first touchdown drive started on the
Yeah.
6-yard line,
Yeah.
and another touchdown drive, like you just said, started on the 21-yard line.
Yeah.
So like, there's 14 points where you only need 30 some yards of offense.
Yeah.
So it's kind of bizarre in a way there.
Now, Tim White, they were forcing the ball to him. I mean, that's why there was that one interception. And then, was that late in the game? They forced the ball to him, and there ended up being a pass interference called when the ball was deflected at the line. I'm surprised that Command Center didn't come down on that one, but they came down on a roughing the passer, I believe. Now,
One play before that, I think.
Yeah.
1 or 2 plays before that.
So the Ticats, they ended up taking 11 penalties for 89 yards, and some of the timing of these penalties were just brutal. Now, the Riders, they had 8 penalties for 78 yards, but there was 30 roughing the passer yards of that one drive and the pass interference. So that all came from like one drive that they basically gifted the Ticats a touchdown on. So they limited their penalty problems. The Ticats did not. And this was their roughest outing of the season, as they're now 0-3. And I saw this stat: the Ticats are 1-11 in the first 3 weeks of the regular season since 2021. So they've started bad in the last few regular seasons. And hey, on the other hand, the Riders have started great the last few regular seasons. So they're going to want to keep it up as the Ticats want to turn it around. Cameron Dukes, 51 fantasy points for you. I'm not talking about my lineup. I'm going to flush it down the toilet. But was the rest of yours a success? I know you had Sam Emelis. He got a touchdown as well.
Yeah, it's kind of the opposite of last week, actually, because I had a terrible week and you had a great week. I ended up with 142.1 points. So
Nice.
that was good enough for me to beat Safanuk or Safamod. We were actually talking about the game, or talking at the game, and he said he was up on me by a little bit, and then I told him who I had, and he's like, "Yeah, okay, I'm gonna lose," because he had nobody playing in the game, and I had 2 riders. So, but yeah, no, it was a good week for me. I'm sure that was a fluke, and it won't happen again, but I'll take it.
Good job, man. Week 3 of the CFL season is already in the books. It is flying by. You can rate, review, and subscribe to 2 and Out on your favorite podcatcher. Make sure you follow us on social as well. There's TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, all that stuff. And go to the website, 2andOut.ca, because Sheldon's going to have his updated power rankings. And there's 2 days left of 25% off at the merch store, the brand new 2 and Out merch store that Sheldon has put together. And hey, check us out on YouTube as well. We're nearing 400 subscribers. Some great growth since the beginning of the year. Maybe we'll get to 400 by Canada Day. I think that can happen. So, hey, thanks for joining me, Travis Currah, and Sheldon Jones for another episode of 2 and Out. We'll get you ready for week 4 later this week.
Thanks for listening. Find more great shows like this at CF Pod Network on Twitter.